Biggest. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're recording now. All right. Okay. Whenever you start, we'll just not worry about it. Okay. I'll try to keep you even in the number of verses. All right. Chris, I guess James wants you to start first.
All
This,
right.
this is a short verse, and the next one will be long, I'm sure.
All right. I have I said oios, oikos, toi, kai, koi, kai, oios, ho, epurenos, kai, oi, no, yeah, uh, irenoi. And I have as the one earthly, so also the earthly ones, and as is the heavenly one, so also the ones that are heavenly.
Okay. And earthy is made of earth, is what it means.
So, one of the translations I looked up wanted to put made of dust.
Well, that's what happened. It was made of dust of the ground. Noah,
mm-hmm.
Adam was, not Noah. I don't got Noah on my mind. Sorry, it's Adam. So this is a relative pronoun. It's one of those older relative pronouns that's not used very much in the New Testament. Okay, but it's what sort of, what manner of. So that's really what it is. And the manner of the earthly, as is the manner of the earthy, such is also the manner of the heavenly. Okay. So you might just translate that as manner of, as the manner of. Okay. And then such is these are kind of special words right here. This is that kind or sort, such a kind, such as this. Something like this, okay? And that's earthy. Also, such one that's heavenly. This one is also heavenly. And they are also earthy. We all partake of the earthy. We're made of dust. That's our bodies. When I die, my body, if the Lord hadn't come before I die, and the body that I have will eventually go back to dust. And it'll be that, but my spirit will live on. And hopefully it will spend eternity in heaven. And as is, or in that nature of sort of the heavenly, if it's a heavenly sort, right? And the articles with it, preaching back to it. One who came out of heaven, I think it refers back to having the nature of the one that came out of heaven, Jesus Christ. But there are also that are heavenly. These are people who set their affections on things above, on heavenly things. And I cite these two passages I've highlighted here. Colossians 3, 1 and 2, and then Hebrews 11, 16. This might be referring to a resurrection body. And Jesus, of course, had that different body after he was resurrected, didn't he? And that may be referring to that different body he had. He had a body of flesh, and he now has a new body, okay, when he's resurrected. I translate as is, and I put is in italics, the earthy. And then I footnoted that. So let's see what the footnote is. Made of dust, Greek made of dust, that's what it means. Right? Such are the that are earthy, and that's also made of dust. I put this made of dust again. I know I repeated it. If I were printing it in my translation, I would have the same footnote numbers, what I did, save space. As is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. Okay. So the body he's talking about is not an earthy body, not one made of dust, but it's suited for heaven. It's one suited for heaven. It's of the sort of body that you'd have in heaven. I think that's what he's saying. Any comments there?
I have something kind of just on old funerals where people would say, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Well, I can find the dust here, but I don't see any reference to ashes anywhere. Is there any justification for that, or is it just a tradition people have picked up on?
Kind of like tradition. I think it's in some of the statements that are made by some of the denominations in some of their catechisms.
Okay, but there's no biblical reference to ashes to ashes. Like, well, I can see the dust reference here, earthy dust.
I think what they're meaning by that, if the body gets burned up in ashes, that's the same parts of the body. That's the way I interpret it.
Okay.
I don't interpret it as being wrong to say it.
Okay.
I've said it at a funeral, but because some people are cremated in their ashes.
Yes.
But
okay.
That's my interpretation of it. I'm not the authority by any means. But
okay.
So yeah.
I'm just wondering where that had come from, if it was a reference. But I understand that now. I guess you could make the case that ashes are maybe kind of dust as well, in a sense. I don't know if that makes. I would guess maybe.
When you get burned up, you're a pile of ashes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I guess some of your carbon that's burned up will turn into carbon dioxide or maybe carbon monoxide when the body burns. But so it wouldn't be all of it would be in the pile of ashes, but a lot of your body would be there. The iron molecules and magnesium and other stuff would probably be there. That's in your body. All right. Any other questions? I think I've heard that's in some of the prayer books or sermon books that are used by various denominations whenever they have funerals, that they put that in there. And, if you're cremated, and a lot of the Romans would cremate their dead a lot of times. At one time, I think they did. And I don't think cremation is wrong. I think it's most of your ashes will contain the dust that's in your body.
Okay. I appreciate that.
I think the carbon might be gone though. All right, any other questions? All right. James, we're back to you. If you would, verse 49. About the same length, so we have pretty well just about even so far.
Verse 49. Kai kathos for resamen tein ekona tu koiku foresomen kai tein ekona tu epuraniu. And I translated that as, and just as we have worn the image of the earthy, we shall wear the image of the heavenly.
Oh, and again, right now we're in our earthly bodies, made of earth, made of dust, and we will have a heavenly body. And that's, in this context, he's talking about, that's what he's talking about. Resurrection. It's going to be, what that body's going to be, it's going to be a heavenly body. Does that help? Any questions?
No, that's good.
And
I did translate, I noticed a number of the translations use the word born or bear, but the word also has the meaning of to wear. And so I thought wear fit rather nicely.
look at the middle of the screen. He brought it up. That's a good point. Let's look at it a little more thoroughly. We have two words, Pharaoh, Phi, Epsilon, Rho, Omega, and Phoreo. Phoreo is what we have here. Okay. And so he denotes a difference between the two. And So he says, differing frequently of Pharaoh and differing from it from Pharaoh by denoting not the simple and transit act of bearing, but continuous habitual bearing. So it's continuous that we're in this physical body because he is Pharaoh rather than Pharaoh. Does that make sense? Pharaoh, I pick up a burden and carry it for a little ways and then put it down. But I don't put it down my physical body. I've been in it ever since I was born, okay? Does that help? I'm going to do something here. I need to correct it. That needs. That's better. All right. Let's see. I won't save it right now. Okay. Trench talks about it a little bit more, and he gives us more information about it here on these notes. And Herodotus 353. That's considered the father of history. He's the first real historian of sorts, other than the scriptures, of course, outside the scriptures. Herodotus. He lived about 300 BC, somewhere thereabouts, and wrote the history of a lot of the parts of the world, of that part of the world at that time. Okay, so he repeatedly bear a message, and that's our word here, repeatedly, and perform a duty for someone. Okay, the image, the icon of the earthy. All humans bear the image of the earthy. The image of Adam, we have his DNA. We're physical in a sense. We have that physical body that's made out of dust. And so we also are going to bear, and that's continuous action as well for Pharaoh, the image of the heavenly. And that's in the resurrection. But it goes back to the Lord, I think. We have his spiritual DNA. I like to call it that, spiritual DNA. Right? Any questions there? That's my interpretation. That's my terminology. Maybe some other people might not like it though, okay? And as we have borne the image of the earthy, we also shall bear the image of the heavenly. And I put a footnote on that, 617. Made of dust, okay? All right. Any questions? All right. Now,
Is that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I do have a question. In the sense of bearing the image, to bear the image of the heavenly, and does that mean that similar to today where our spirit is in the physical body, the spirit in the new situation will be in a heavenly body, or?
Yes, that's why I interpret it. I don't think it'll just necessarily bear a spirit. I think we'll have a body, a spiritual body.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's
this.
okay. All right. Yeah. So where might not be totally out of place, where in a sense the spirit is wearing that
Right.
spiritual body. It's not the spirit itself.
No.
Okay.
But King James and American Standard both have bear, but I don't necessarily always go with them. But I think I consider the men that translated them to be great scholars. So I always look at it carefully before I go against them. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now we're back to James. We're getting close to the end of the book. It'll be a little while before we finish it, but we should finish it for Christmas, before we have break for December. Probably should finish it, I would think. Okay. Verse 50, if you would. Now this is verses 50 through 58. That'll be through the end of the chapter here. The revelation of truths about the resurrection that would help them to understand more about it. So we're going to have some more information. right? Verse 50, if you would, back to Chris, if you would, please.
Okay. Tuto de feme adelphoi hoti sarx kai amia basilian theo cleron, let's see, cleron umesai dunatai ude he Fathora Tain Aftharosian Cleronomi. I have now I say this, brothers, that flesh and blood cannot possess or inherit the kingdom of God, neither shall corruption inherit incorruption.
Okay. Flesh and blood are not to inherit, okay, the kingdom of God, right? Neither corruption shall inherit incorruption. So he has flesh and blood is the same as corruption. Probably parallelism, saying the same thing in two different ways. Probably that's how I interpret this. So the flesh and blood is that body that we have, that body of dust that he's been talking about. It's flesh and blood, and it corrupts. It's going to die. It's going to corrupt. All right. So that's the same as corruption. And the kingdom of God is the same as incorruption. It's going to be an incorruptible thing. All right. I think this right here is really talking about heaven itself rather than the church. Kingdom of heaven is sometimes used for heaven itself, but in this case, I think it probably is. So now, but day reaches back and it may be explaining here. I think here it's explanatory. I take it to be explanatory. Daniel Manny uses that term. And it looks back, it's post-positive, see, and it can pull now this. See this, and so that's neuter. And so it's neuter, and it's the thing, see. And so it's tuto, it's utos, it's that remote demonstrative. The near demonstrative is utos, that's what we have here. Ekinos is remote. So this, I say, then the things he's just been talking about, and the body, and the dust in the body of the spiritual. All right. So he's talking to the church, of course, called brethren. Not that non-Christians can't learn from this, but this is directed. He's trying to get this across to the brethren at Corinth. Flesh and blood. I've found one passage in the Bible talking about blood and flesh instead of flesh and blood. I find that interesting. I've tried to wrestle to figure out why the difference, but that's another passage for another time. Okay. So the flesh and blood is not possible. Who is absolutely denies the possibility. It does not have the power to inherit. Now this is middle passive. I would think it's probably passive to inherit. So I'll just underline it as probably passive. But who denies the reality of the fact? It denies its taking, in this case, doesn't have the power to inherit. That's an infinitive. To inherit what? The kingdom of God. Now, that is saying, in this context, that a fleshly body cannot go into heaven. The body, we have to get a new body to go into heaven. I think that's what he's saying. Any comments there? Okay. I'm glad we do because my body's getting to where it has more and more aches and pains, and I just can't do what I could do when I was 20 years old. Okay. At one time, I played basketball and I could jump and touch the rim, put into my fingers, and I couldn't even jump and touch the bottom of the net right now. Okay. Okay. I'm just not what I was at one time. Okay. Body's wearing out. And I hope to have that new body and it won't wear out. That's why I think the kingdom of God represents the church, and Mark 9:1, I would say, probably does. Okay. And right here, Chi RV is a revised version. That's a 1888 or somewhere thereabouts version that the American Standard came out of it. The English translated their own translation, and the Americans translated theirs. And they're supposed to exchange back and forth and try to reconcile differences. And the Americans agreed not to publish theirs for another 10 or 15 years or something like that. But I don't think the Americans kept their word. I think they're supposed to keep it back for 15 or 20 years, but they published it after about half that time. I think that's what I was told. They got tired of waiting on it. They just went ahead and published it. Okay. So it appears they may have not kept their word. That's the American Standard. It's the English Revised Version. Okay. All right. Not the Revised Standard Version. So I think it's the church. And the kingdom of God is a spiritual kingdom. I would call this right here on 1836. My kingdom is not of this world. See, if it were, then my servants would fight that it should not be delivered to the Jews. All right. And the apostles, they wanted to fight in the Garden of Gethsemane. Peter drew his sword out and cut the right ear off Malchus, servant of the high priest. And so the other ones were ready to fight too. Shall we fight? They asked the Lord. And so they had the wrong impression of the kingdom. They thought of it as a physical kingdom, not a spiritual kingdom. Any questions? I'm sorry, I'm correcting this as I go. Okay. And neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. And now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood are not able to inherit the kingdom of God. They just can't go into heaven, see, because it's a spiritual place. Neither does corruption inherit incorruption. And I'll refer back to verse 42. All right, any questions? So I think you were the last one, weren't you?
I did that one.
Okay. Anything you want to add there to it?
No, I think that explained it well. I like the explanation of the parallelism that flesh and blood equals corruption. I think that makes it clear what he's trying to say.
Well, we have parallelism in the New Testament, but it's a very common thing under the system of the Old Testament Hebrew language. I don't know about the Aramaic. I don't know anything about Aramaic. It's very similar to Hebrew, though, so I don't know. All right, verse 51, if you will, James, please.
Yes, sir. Idou musterion humin lego, pantes menu poemethe sometha, pantes de alage sometha. And I translated that as, behold, I speak a mystery to you. Surely we will not all fall asleep, but we will all be changed.
Surely or indeed, it's the emphatic statement men is. Surely is good rendering like that. Or it could be indeed. Okay. All right. Surely is probably better than indeed, though. This is a mystery, say. And say, why is it a mystery? Because it's one of those things that men look into, and it obviously was a mystery because they didn't understand it. Okay. So, and God hadn't revealed it in detail in the Old Testament scriptures. So Paul is now revealing it as an apostle. So this was a mystery, something that hadn't been, it's a secret that hadn't been revealed yet. But Paul is now revealing it. We all shall not, and there's your men. And it's not in all the manuscripts, but look at all the manuscripts it's in, and so we can look at that. If you have my logic book, I have one of the appendices devoted to which the Greek text and textual criticism, we call it. Amen is emphatic, and it's most common of the intensive particles. Now, particle is not the same as a participle, remember that, in the New Testament. So it's emphatic, but it's not enclitic. So it doesn't lose its accent mark, say. Right? Enclitic would mean it would join itself in pronunciation with the word just before it, but it doesn't. It keeps it separate. So we won't all sleep, and that's probably a euphemism for death. That's what Thayer says, and I think he's probably right. But notice the contrast here. We shall all be changed. Everybody's going to be changed. And so that changing is from that dustly body, earthy body, to a heavenly body. And so we're going to exchange one thing for another. We're going to get rid of, shuck off this old fleshly body. Right? We're going to lose it, get a heavenly body. I tell you a mystery indeed. I translate indeed. Well, how did you render it there? What was your word? Surely?
Surely, yes, sir.
That's good. Surely we shall all not sleep, but we shall all be changed indeed. Probably about equivalent translations. I'm explaining this to you. You're going to go on and explain it, continuing to explain it now. I'm back to Chris, if you would. Chris, please.
Right. In atomo, in ripe, ophthalmu, in te, escate, sal, pingi, sal, pise, gar, kai, oi necroi, ager the sontai, aphthartoi, kai, amais, Allah, Alagasomita. I have in an instant, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, shall sound, or trumpeting, for even the dead ones will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed.
So what's this moment? What's that word? That's an interesting word.
Ripe.
What do you see in that word?
Well, I mean, I see twinkling. Is that the one you're talking about, or
moment? See my cursor?
Oh, an instant. Oh, I see.
Atomos.
Yeah.
Can't be cut. What did they originally think an atom was? You remember?
Say that again now.
An atom? What did they think an atom was? Something that can't be divided up.
Oh, okay.
Now, we found out that's not true, but that's what an atom meant, not able to be cut up, not able to be cut. Can't cut it into divided. So this is talking about a section of time that is so short that we have no subdivision to subdivide it into. That would be the least moment of time. Now, I know we divide time up into milliseconds and microseconds and nanoseconds and so forth. And we divide it up very, very small periods of time, but we had to put ourselves back in their time frame. So the shortest moment of time they had with timekeeping was probably an hourglass, an hour. All right. But this is something that's probably even shorter than that. That's what he's saying. Because
Instantaneous?
It can't be cut up into parts. Then he explains it further. It's as fast as an eye twinkles. That's pretty quick. See? So he's explaining what this a moment means. It's short. You can't cut time up into other parts. So the shortest that they had was an hour with an hourglass. But to let you know, it's not even that period of time. He's saying it's twinkling of an eye. So he says, so they've got a subdivision that's shorter than that. How fast your eye can twinkle. That's pretty quick. All right. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Would this word give the idea of instantaneous then?
I would think so.
Okay.
But as far as we're concerned, be instantaneous. Okay, that's the way I would see it. Okay. So he uses can't cut it up into a lower, smaller segment of time. Their smallest segment was an hourglass. And he says to make sure you didn't think it'd be an hour long. Past an hour, it's twinkling of an eye. How quick that happens. I saw somewhere someone figured how quick eyes would twinkle. It's a very small fraction of a second, okay? And so they had no negative divided time smaller than an hour. It occurs in a very short period of time. I put microseconds in here, but that's just kind of, I'm not saying it's microseconds, I'm just saying it's very, very short period of time. I think it'd be instantaneous. Now, the last trumpet, what's the trumpet do? We got to ask ourselves, what's the trumpet for? And I got several uses of trumpets down here. Used to signal an announcement was about to be made, and there's some passages. Used to signal a warning of something. You signal that an event is about to occur, something is about to occur. I think that's how it's used here in this passage. They were also used for worship, but I think this third is probably the correct interpretation. Yeah, anybody have a comment there on that?
I was just looking at the passage and thinking how great and powerful God must be to do this in a twinkling of an eye.
Well, the God that we worship created the whole universe. So
Yes.
it's nothing to him to do that.
I hear you. Wow, what power. It's
Okay.
just awe-inspiring.
And the trumpet shall sound. And when the trumpet sounds, a signal that an event's about to occur, the event being the resurrection, and the dead shall be raised. And it's going to happen in the twinkling of an eye, virtually instantaneously, and be raised incorruptible. Okay, raised up incorruptible. This one aspect of the nature of the body that God gives at the resurrection, now it's incorruptible. So it's raised in an incorruptible body. The body I have now is corruptible. I can see it. Once in a while, I get a sore on me. I'll cut myself, and I'll get corruption. My body is having to fight off disease. Got an infection, got into a cut or a scratch or something. So I could actually see my body corrupting, and I know it happens, and I know it's happening. Pardon me, I got the hiccups. My body is dying, and we shall be changed. Mace is always emphatic. We shall be changed, because of course this verb has its own pronoun, we, with it. even we shall be changed from the corruptible body to an incorruptible body. That's what's suited for eternity in the spirit realm. So I translate, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, shall the trumpet, for the trumpet shall sound, the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. And I put we, and I've footnoted emphatic, we, even we. Questions? Now, he goes on, and we're back to Chris, I think, right?
I thought it was back to me.
Oh, it's back to you, okay.
Yes, sir. 53. Dagar to, Fatharton tuto, Endu sastai, Aftharsion, Kaito, Thanaton tuto, Endu sastai, Athanasion. And I translated that, for it is necessary this corruptible to put on immortality, and this mortal to put on immortality.
So this becomes a necessary thing, because this physical body that I'm in right now can't abide in the spirit realm. So it's not suited for it. It's not fit for it. It's not proper. It's not suitable to accomplish the functions that it would have. Can't function in it. So it is necessary day. And so this is from day. It is necessary. It's right or proper. And it's from day. Oh, it's it's an impersonal verb, and to bind or fasten. So it is a necessary thing to put on, and this, of course, is middle voice, to put on incorruption. So the body is necessary, the body to put on the incorruption. So it's necessary for us to put on an incorruptible body. So we have to put that body on. So there's some sense in which we're clothing ourselves with that new body. You know, that's an interesting thought, that it's middle voice. I find that very interesting. I would say, it might be saying here that we are actually clothing ourselves right now with our spiritual body, in a spiritual sense, by the deeds and the way we live. Right. So I don't know, that being the middle voice, that's a possible interpretation. Any questions? So I think our deeds are providing us with spiritual clothing in the spirit realm. Corruptible body cannot inherit heaven, cannot exist in the spirit realm. So we must be given a different body. And of course, I find that very interesting, that this was put on as a middle voice, necessary to put on incorruption. We have to change. We have to change. Right? And this mortal, that which is subject to death, that's what that means, must put on, back to the middle voice, must put on immortality, necessary for this to occur. And I think we're involved in putting it on ourselves. And it might be that just the life we're living fits us for it, or this is what causes us to do it. It's conditional. We live as Christians, and that's preparing us, and it's accomplishing what is needed for us to actually get this body. That's probably what it means right there. The life we live is preparing us to receive this body. Right? For this corruptible must put on incorruption, this mortal must put on immortality. Questions or comments? Verse 54. Are we back to Chris?
Yes.
Well, he stuck you with a longer verse here. So, okay. Well,
Thanks, Chris.
That's all right. I'll take it. Okay, I have aton de to fulfill arton tuto in du setai aphtharsian kai to thanaton tuto in du setai athanasian tote gene setai ho logos ho gegramenos kate pothe ho thanatos ace nikos. I have, and when this perishable shall have put on imperishable, and the mortal has put on immorality, shall come to pass the world having already been written. Oh, the word, sorry, and the word already, let me go back, has put on immortality, then shall come to pass the word having already been written. Death has been swallowed up in victory.
By having this happen already been written, he's looking back to even this is in the Old Testament. See? He goes back to the Old Testament. So God's been revealing this for a long time. This has been revealed several centuries before Paul wrote. So he refers back to this. And of course, this is an articular participle of the one doing it. Okay, the word, which word? The one that has already been written. That's the having already been written word. But when at that time, see, that's that moment in the twinkling of an eye. This corruptible shall put on incorruption. When that happens, that physical body is writing as the physical body. The corruptible which is writing as the physical body. And corruption is the spiritual heavenly body, see. Verse 42 and verse 50. And then he goes on and says, and this what? This death, this body that dies, that's that corruptible body shall put on immortality. So it shall put on that which is immortal that won't die again. So this is really the opposite of death. It's the antithesis of death, immortality and death. Mortal is something that can die, and immortal that can't die, see. That's why they try to say the immortality, not subject to death. Alpha primitive and thanatos is death. Yeah. So it's not, can't die. So at this point, when we reach this point and are translated, I think this is the translation that occurs at the second coming. We'll become immortal, I believe, at this point. And we won't die again. No more death. And of course, if we've been faithful children of God, we won't die the second death, which I believe is eternal separation from God. Right. 1 John 3:1, or to live throughout eternity, we must put on immortality. We shall be like him at his coming. We see this in 1 John 3:2. Okay. There's a sense in which we put on immortality, and that's the middle voice. And I interpret this with the effects that we put on immortality on putting immortality on by living according to the scriptures. We're putting that on as we live. We suited ourselves for it. And jump down like that. Then shall come to pass, let's say, next verse, isn't it? Shall come to pass the saying. Did we finish this? And shall come to pass the saying. At that time shall come to pass. This is Isaiah 25:8, where he gets this from. Right? This is when all tears are wiped away from all faces. And the reproach of the people shall be taken away from off the earth. Death is swallowed up in victory. translation, but when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, this mortal shall put on immortality, then shall come to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. So that death, that physical body that dies, we have victory over that death, over that physical death. And so if we have a loved one that passes from this life as a faithful child of God, we have sorrow over it. But we don't need to be sorrowing like the world, because our loved one has gone on. If they're faithful to the Lord, they've gone on to a better place. So that takes part of that sting of death away. Don't say it removes all cause for grief, but it does help to know that our loved one is going to be in a better place. Right? Someone suffering from cancer for years and years might, if they're faithful to the Lord, it's a blessing that they're able to stop the suffering and get into a state where they're not suffering anymore. So it's a pleasing thing to be a child of God and know we have that promise. All right, so much for that. Any questions? James, you got a short one here.
Okay.
You chose well.
Yes, sir.
Let's do this caller. That'll end our study. Okay.
Okay, and just a word of comment before reading, there is a textual variant on this. So just FYI.
Okay.
Pusu thanata to kentron pusu hades to nikos. And I translated that, where is your sting, O death? Where is your victory, O Hades?
Yeah.
And I mentioned the textual variant. It has basically, where is your victory, O death? Where is your sting, O death? It doesn't mention Hades. So kind of interesting. There's a difference there.
Yeah. I don't know why I don't have. Yeah, I have majority text reading. Here's the text that I chose. 627. Yeah, there it is. And the reading of the majority text is supported by Aleph, A, K, L, all of these F35 Texas receptors, and the Peshitta, the old Syriac.
Okay.
So I put a footnote in there, so I got it in there. That help a bit?
Yes, sir.
So you know what manuscripts actually supported. The majority text is over 9% of the manuscripts, and these other ones are manuscripts from, let me highlight them from here over to here, are not part of the majority text. So it's got a lot of non-majority text manuscripts supporting it. F35 is a subdivision of the majority text. And I think it's the correct text of the Bible. That's my conviction. Textus Receptus is what the King James Version was translated from.
And I did notice your footnote 629. Where is of you the victory? And the first part of this, when I initially translated it, I have, where is of you, O death, the sting? And then ended up with, where is your sting, O death?
Yeah.
So it's interesting you put the footnote down, because that is the literal translation.
So death doesn't have a victory anymore. It lost its victory when Christ died and gave us the right to have this new body. They can kill this body, but they can't kill my spirit, my soul, and take it away from me. And we're probably where we should probably quit. I'll halt to it. Let's start with verse 56 next week. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Yes, sir.
Now and I want to talk to you, both of you, just a moment after I quit recording.